Yo, the enemy's public, I gotta keep my eyes open. Pay attention, stop walking around like you blindfolded. This not the World Cup, but Nasir be kicking knowledge. This is the type of information you can never learn in college. It's time to fight back, it's no more trying to play it cool. We got interviews, podcasts, and got the latest news. So sit back and relax, we about to get it started. Earth is a canvas, and guess who's the con artist? They brainwashing us, the system corrupted. You are now rocking with the enemy's public. You are now rocking with the enemy's public. I said you are now rocking with the enemy's public. Hey.
Peace. This is the enemy's public, and I am Bro.Nasir. Today, I want to go over a very important recording that I remember when my father first brought it home back in 1976. I was 10 years old. This album had a lot of hits on it. I Wish, Love's Anita, Love Today, Isn't She Lovely? You just name it. So many. Pastime Paradise. It was a very much sampled album. And I regard it as the best recording ever. And this is an album that the composers of yesterday, way before this man was born, will be scratching their head listening to this composition of this beautiful music. And if you will ever call a man a musical god, it would be this man, Stevie Wonder. The songs in the key of life. I'm going to play the making of the songs in the key of life. I hope you get something out of this. Listen and enjoy, because this is going to show us what this brilliant songwriter and musician was able to do at the age of probably 23, 24 years old.
When I came up with the title, Songs in the Key of Life, to me, that was a challenge to actually do an album relating to life. Or saying songs in the key of life. It's impossible to cover all of what life is about. As much as Motown wanted to be finished and to be done, to be released, I wanted to finish it as well, but I didn't want to finish it as much as I wanted for it to be a representation of how and what I was feeling at that time.
He took his life experiences and he put them all into the songs of Key of Life, and it worked. It worked.
I felt so.
Pardon the quality of the video. It looks a little distorted. Pardon the quality of the video. Get the information and enjoy the music.
Proud to be on such a landmark record. There was nothing like that before. Nothing.
Stevie Wonder did it, number one. And he was involved in every aspect of creating it, from the producing to writing and performing and playing. And also, he deals with it like extended form. It has a unified theme. It's subliminal, but it's a unified theme.
Would you like to go with me
down my dead end street. We recorded Songs in the Key of Life in 2 studios, the Hit Factory in New York and Crystal Sound here in Los Angeles. Over the 2.5 years it took to make the album, we used different musicians and guest singers. Throughout the period, however, there was a core group of musicians that played on most of the songs. Nathan Watts, the bass player, is still with me, but I've not seen the other musicians for a long, long time, over 20 years. We've come together again today for this film to re-record some old songs and to recall some good times with old friends. Check it out.
All I like to the magic colors, red, blue, and white. Just give the world.
How you doing, man?
Man, look at it.
Good seeing you. Good seeing you.
Man, I didn't know you were gonna be here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, this is incredible.
Yeah, it's the drum, right?
I'm sorry, I do not speak your language. I'm really sorry. I missed my high school reunion, you know, so.
This is just as good.
This is it.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. Yeah, more fun.
In fact, I don't think I graduated high school because. Wait, you know why? Because that's when we went on the road.
Oh yeah.
That's right. I was like 17 when I got with Steve, so it's like I don't think I actually graduated. I left before I got my diploma, so I don't even know if I made it. Wait a minute. Oh my God, what a realization. That's right, I'm in trouble. I'll never be able to get a job without a high school diploma.
I challenged myself to at least writing as many different things about as many different things as I could, to cover as many topics as I could in dealing with the title and representing what it was about. So in one sense, I had already had lots of songs I'd already done. Done, some that have still yet to be released. And the title would give me a challenge, but equally as important as a challenge, it would give me an opportunity to express my feelings as a songwriter, as an artist, and as well to be joined by the people that were a part of working with me on this. I had met John some years ago when I first came out to California and did some of my first recordings at the studio that he called his partner at that time, Andrew, which was Crystal. And I met Gary at Record Plant, LA, when I was working on a lot of the stuff that would ultimately become Innovations. I put the two of them together and said, let's try working together and see how you all work with each other. And now the three of us work together, and the kind of hours that I kept. Gary would work one day, John would work another day, and then sometimes it would be the two of them, and they would alternate. Ultimately, it was them working with me through at least the 2.5, 3 years, and finishing up Songs of the Key of Life.
Well, Songs in the Key of Life, as Steve mentioned earlier.
The incredible thing about this album is Stevie Wonder was probably 23, 24 when he wrote the album and composed it. When it was released, I think he was like 26 years old. Now just think, 26 years old, and he released an album of this magnitude. If you don't have Songs in the Key of Life, you need to get it, listen to it from cover to cover. It's one of those albums, just let rock. And he sprung so many hits off this album. And I as a 10-year-old was going crazy over this album. So many hits. I regard it, in my humble opinion, as the best recording ever.
It was something that we were definitely too wrapped up in at the time to really be objective about it. Looking back on it now, I really have to thank Steve for giving me the opportunity to sort of make whatever musical history that we didn't think was history at the time, but it obviously is a classic to some people.
It has vision. It has certainly elements that relate to the time period in which it was created, but the lyrical approach, the musical approach go beyond the time, to the extent that it's no surprise to us that 2000 is a few years away. People will still be able to listen to Sgt. Pepper. They'll still be able to listen to Songs in the Key of Life.
Stevie Wonder, especially with that record, made a mark in music, and that is that popular music can be art too.
Because I never the words. Isn't she lovely? Dun, 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 dun. Isn't she dun, 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 dun,
One thing that really made it work great was actually something we just kind of did by chance, and that is I took the reel-to-reel Stellavox home with me, portable recording machine, and I told Yolanda, I said, look, I want us to get some sounds of just Aisha, and that's just the interaction between yourself, me, and her. All of us just, obviously Aisha had no sense of what was going on. She just knew that one of the next sounds. And that particular sound there is not Aisha, but it's a baby that a doctor that we knew, a doctor friend found, and we were able to get the birth of this child. And that is Yolanda there, laughing. Miss Aisha. This is when we were at the Regency apartment hotel, and she's messing with a dresser drawer and just being silly, just being a baby girl.
The one thing that I usually focus on every time I hear it, though, is her. I'm sorry, but it is. It's just funny to hear them talking about me.
Hear me talking.
Yeah.
Mm.
Especially when she starts laughing. She's like, it sounds like she said, beat me.
I hate
favorite.
that part.
That's my favorite.
beat me. Beat you.
She says, beat me. You understand why she's saying beat me? We never beat our child. We never did.
Promise you.
Come on, get out of there. Get out the water.
I mean, I knew it was good, but I couldn't believe the success of it. I mean, it was just big, huge. That was a mistake there by the harmonica. I never corrected that. Want to run it back a little bit? Can you run it back?
Huh?
Yeah, run it back a little tiny bit.
Punch. Yeah.
It was a
Punch it out.
mistake. Let's erase that so they don't let me hear that again.
It's like taking S's off, huh, Steve?
Take the harmonica just by itself.
Oh. That's funny. I never heard that.
I'll admit
I
to
never
that
heard
mistake. Punch!
72 was Talking Book, 73 was Innovisions, and 74 was Fulfilling This First Finale. And so we had geared up for this album, and instead of it coming that in the same year or the next year, we had a whole other year. And it's one thing about any record label that when you do your budgets and you do all of your cash flow projections and all that, and you have an album coming off of 3 big albums like that, then you are in a lot of trouble when it's a year late.
There's songs to make you smile, there's songs to make you sad. But with a happy song to sing, it never seems as bad to make in this melody. So I've tried to put in words how I feel. Tomorrow will be for you and me. Yeah, I am singing of tomorrow. I am singing of love.
The year he did Songs in the Key of Life, unfortunately for me, his contract was up.
Well, Barry and I have always had a very, very straight to the point relationship. Since I was very little, I would give my opinion about something, and it wasn't always what he wanted to hear, and vice versa. I mean, there were things that he would say to me that I wouldn't always want to hear, but he was very honest and very candid about what he felt, and as too I was.
He made me pay $13 million. And in those days, $13 million was a lot of money.
A lot of money. But it took the people with the vision like Stevie to figure out what's an equitable situation, because to me, a good businessman is one that understands the dynamics of win-win. That's what it's all about.
And I'd heard that was the unprecedented deal, and it was the most that's ever been paid, and it was in 1976, and I was like, but I had to do it because there was no way that I was going to lose Stevie.
I didn't pay attention to that part of the business until I got stranded in Europe in 1959 and 60 and almost committed suicide. It was the worst. It was a great time, but it was a rough time. I didn't pay attention to that before, and I went back and I had to pay off debts for 7 years,
I think it probably cemented the concept of the superstar artist who had to be taken seriously.
And I think Stevie, from some experience, figured he had to do it too. And I saw his primary example was Picasso. Unbelievable. And it boils down to being in control of your own destiny, because it's a terrible feeling to think that you get to be 70 years old, and you still have to go out and talk to some 24-year-old executive, to get a gig, man. That's not happening.
I didn't really think about how much it was going to cost, or, if they had to bring the price down to make it compatible palatable for for what was happening in the music industry. I didn't really think about any of that stuff.
I was shaking in my boots.
Very fortunately, he was brave enough to.
I know one thing. Stevie Wonder did a Songs in the Key of Life tour about 3-4 years ago, and the nosebleeds were like over $200. But anything on that floor in any stadium that he played was over $1,500 per ticket. And that's just the lowest price that's on the floor. And those places were packed. Anything on the floor, whether it's a basketball stadium or wherever he played at on that Songs in the Key of Life tour, anything on the floor was over $1,500 and up, starting.
To take that challenge, to say, you know what, I believe in him enough to do this, and I believe in the gamble. And you know what? He was a smart man.
I mean, it was like such a masterpiece because you go from Village Ghetto Land to Sir Duke and to I Wish, which is incredible. When I heard I Wish, you know, I thought like so many other people in the world when they heard the record, I wish I could be back in those days again, you know, because all the stuff that he talked about there. And not only did he express it, he did it in a rhythm that was so unique.
Yes. It's already on here. Just look. It's already open. Sit by the box. This is tight. That sounds really great. Thanks, John. Steve picked everybody. You said from the beginning, all these cats, Steve individually chose everybody here.
That's how you told us all these other years, man.
Huh? But I want to say one thing. I want to mention one person that's not here with us. The only one's not. That's Ray Malata. That's one we say.
Great. Oh, no, I don't think any recording took place in the daytime. I think.
Yes, it did. Remy, it did. After we stayed up all night. Yeah.
I Wish began the evening after a Motown picnic. I went to Crystal, and we started on this piano, and we started the first track with keyboards. After we did the keyboards, I then put a drum track down.
If it's magic, then why can't it be everlasting? Like the sun that always shines.
If It's Magic was a song that I wanted to say, as I did in the lyric, to say all of the things that that the song represents, that is really talking about love. I mean, obviously, it is love. If love is magic, then why can't it be everlasting? But I didn't want to say love.
Like on the seashores, there are shells. Like the time that always tells. It holds the key to every heart throughout the universe. It fills you up without a bite, quenches every thirst. If it's special, then with it, why aren't we as careful?
The harp player on If It's Magic was Dorothy Ashby. She was a great harpist. I mean, she had done a lot of stuff, a lot of jazz stuff around Detroit, but unfortunately never received the kind of recognition that she deserved. And I just was so very happy that we were able to find her, and her graces with accompanying me with such a great ability as she did have in doing If It's Magic. As much as I did it on various times, I did versions of it with the piano. The magic happened with her playing the harp and me singing on top of that.
Why can't we make it everlasting? Like the lifetime of the sun.
Originally, Sir Duke was done on the 16 track.
I think so.
At Crystal. And then you all got a new 24 track.
Right.
Yeah.
And we transferred it over. The studio, exactly. I remember that. Because I remember trying to, like, listen, see which one sounds the same. Does it sound the same, Stevie?
For that kind
Is
of
that the
money,
24 track or is that the
not.
16 track? I think that's the 4 track.
Yeah.
Who was
No.
he impersonating then? You think?
It was like the man on the tape. Like,
Oh, yeah.
What guy?
500 shirts.
Music is a world within itself, with a language we all understand. With an equal opportunity for all to say let's let their hands. But just because the record has groove, don't make it in the groove. But you can tell right away, let's say, when the people start to move. They can feel it all over. They can feel it all over me. They can feel it all over. They can feel it all over me. Music knows it is and always will be one of the things that life just won't win. Give us some of the music's pioneers, I will not allow us to forget now. Well, there's Missy Miller, saxophone, and the king of our circuit. And with a voice like Kelly's bringing out, there's no way the man can lose. You can feel it all over. You can feel it all over me. You can feel it all over. You can feel it all over me. You can feel it all
I remember one funny thing. And Steve Madeo did it. One day we were in the studio right here, and I think I don't know what album it was. Yeah. Stevie was with the alligator. Stevie was being led in this one room right here where we're sitting right now. And Steve was walking, taking his rest. Someone was leaving him in. I don't know who it was, but Steve Madeo said something. I just laugh at it about this very day. Steve was about to take a step. Steve, don't step on my pet alligator. Stevie stopped right there. Man, I laughed for the longest. That was the funniest thing. That was funny.
You know, he's blind, and you sit there and you wonder, this man can't even see, but he sees so many more things that people with sight don't see. He sees, it's like he sees things of the soul more than things of the world of our quote unquote reality. You know?
So much of what Stevie has is what is not through outside training, but through his own studies, you know, through his own development.
He's a profoundly creative person and a profound human being too. And you match those two things together. A giving person. He's such a giving person, and that's all part of that whole thing. I don't know how to explain it or analyze it, but I felt it for a long time, and the whole world's felt it.
And he's just studied a lot of things himself, and learned a lot, and also stumbled on a lot of things, perhaps out of ignorance, because he maybe wasn't so jaded by the rules that a teacher might tell us. You know, that's the one drawback with education is that they teach you rules, but they don't teach you that the rules are just guidelines and they can be broken.
But I ain't never crossed a man that didn't deserve it. Me be treated like a punk, you know that's unheard of. You better watch how you're talking and where you're walking, or you and your homies might be lying and talking. I really hate the trip, but I gotta low. As they croak, I see myself in the pistol smoke. Fool, I'm the kind of G the little homies wanna be like, on my knees in the night, saying prayers in the street light.
And I said, what is that? I said, who is that? He said, oh, that's just something I'm working on. I said, what is it though? He said, oh, it's a Stevie song. I said, I never heard that before. I never heard this song before. What? I said, whose is it? I said, whose track is this? He said, something I'm working on. He said, LV had just walked in maybe an hour before I did. And I said, it's mine. I said, how much you want for it? It's mine, I want it.
Pastime paradise. Been spending most of our lives living in pastime paradise.
That song really, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. I wanted to have that kind of string feel of, say, an Eleanor Rigby, a Beatles song, but I wanted to take it to dealing with a lyric that would make, without question, you understand exactly what we're talking about.
This version of it starts with a gong that comes in and it's backwards. That was difficult to do. That entailed turning the tape upside down, figuring out where you go in, where you're going to come out, and it takes time to do it, but it was very effective and is a result of the gong at the end of the tune. That's what gave Steve the idea that we should go put one backwards at the front. The other element that's very important to this song is a Yamaha Dream Machine, a large synthesizer that was polyphonic. It allowed Steve to play many notes at a time instead of the traditional way, which was to layer one note at a time, a very tedious, long process. Now he could play big arrangements, and it changed the way we could work, and we used it a lot on this album. It was very important to the album.
So many people live in a past, whether it be in a time where they've, where for them segregation was a good thing, a great thing to do, and racism and just whatever the evils of the world were, they wanted to kind of live and celebrate those things. And then there's the other group that, spending most, their lives living in a future paradise, living in a time or living in the spirit of the day when people will be one, when all of what has been prophesied becomes the reality. And so they were looking forward to that.
The other elements in this song that are important are the percussion, and the percussion is really anchored by these Hare Krishna bells. Steve had the idea for the song that it would have a universal theme if he put in Hare Krishna bells, and he arranged to have a group of Hare Krishna devotees come and play. And they're used throughout playing these bells. And then later on, they'll come in and they'll start to chant. Along with that percussion, we have cowbells, we have congas that go along with that. We have hand claps, but I think they're really stick claps.
Rhythmically, I wanted to give it a kind of Latin feel, as it had, with a little twist of the backbeat thing, kind of influenced by that whole Earth, Wind, and Fire groove that was happening back then. I had done one other recording of Pastime Paradise where I tried putting drums on it, which at that time, I guess you would say, like having an orchestra like with a Barry White kind of feel, where they're like,
along with that, then we layered vocals, which is his lead vocal, and two other vocals that will double him in various parts of the song, and then a third very high vocal that gives an eerie quality to certain parts of the song. Here we have the Hare Krishnas coming in. And then it's going to be followed by the large choir, very large gospel choir. So you get the quality of the Hare Krishna chant against We Shall Overcome, which makes it a very haunting song.
I'm very glad that ultimately I did not keep the drums on the song, because it worked really good with the Latin feel and with the bass and the whole thing. Just various counter rhythms.
It's Steve's view of the whole album, which is, people should be together and take care of each other. And so in the end is the gong, which is what gave him the idea to do the reverse gong at the front.
So that's what Gangsta's Paradise is. It's not a rap song. People call it a gothic rap song. They tried to come up with all these names for it, but what it really is a new Negro spiritual.
Why are we
so blind to see that the ones we hurt are you and me.
Anticipation, embrace relation, constellation, segregation, disputation, isolation, exploitation, mutilation, mutation, this creation, to the evils of the world.
Been swinging most our life, living in a pastime paradise.
Been spending most of my life living in a gangster's paradise.
Now, see, Wonder Time is different than the standard mean time, right? Like, there's the equator, and then, after you hit, so they figured, actually, they're going to put it in the geographic books because, see, Steve will go for, 3-4 days and then take a nap, and you basically, when you're in the studio, too, you're in an environment, you're creative, so time evolves, like, differently, right? So we all have this, we're all going to sue Steve because we all have this dysfunction where we can't sleep anymore. Because our bodies don't know how to, like I went to the Betty Ford Center. I went to the Chick Center for, and I said, look, I got this problem. I seem to want to stay up and record music all night long. Can you help me? And I sleep every 2 or 3 days. And, essentially what he did is he turned us all into vampires, essentially. I mean, I'm the only guy that goes to Japan and actually is on the right schedule.
Saturn.
Saturn, as we say on our planet, right? Saturn.
It was good to see you.
See you again.
Just thinking about that whole thing with Saturn. Obviously, I wondered, but what inspired you to take what I had as the original concept of going back to Saginaw to write going back to Saturn? What happened with it? How did you do that?
It's like the way it's so amazing, Steve. The way that you write, it's like the song is like already written in there. So when I heard, you just have to chip away at the rock and find because your syllables are like you kind of channel this other language. It sort of turns into English, and I just sort of moved some of the syllables around, and the song was like basically written by the time you gave me the tape because you were saying Saginaw. And it's the funny thing how when you're sort of driving around in a car or something, or you're not paying attention, and you listen to something on tape, you remember back in the days when we would try to get stuff off of records and we'd write all the wrong lyrics down, and we find out years later it's something else. Well, I thought you were saying Saturn.
Really?
Yeah, it sounded like Saturn for a minute, and Saturn, it basically just represents a Shangri-La or a perfect kind of place where people are realizing their true potential as a spirit.
Saturn is one of my favorite songs on this album. Very thought-provoking song, very spiritual song. A very nice song that makes you think.
Spiritual beings. I mean, because we are basically spiritual beings having a human experience.
Speaking of Saturn, that kind of stuff, what? I was like looking at your hair here.
Yeah, well, you kind of got me into this, but remember, I was probably the first Italian to have his hair braided back in the 70s, see, because, I remember I tried to do cornrows like you, and my head bled. My head swelled up like a big watermelon, and it bled, so I said, I have to find my own religion, so I basically started the Pastafarians, which is the Italian Rastafarians, because they wouldn't have me in the regular Pastafarians, being that I ain't from Jamaica. So you see what I did is I started, inside of each one of these here spindle lock things here is pasta, see? And we wrap the pasta up here, see? And then over here is our prayer beads, see? We pray over here on these things here, and see?
How do you communicate with the people from Saturn?
No, from Saturn, this one over here is Saturn here. Take this one here. You just want to say a few words to people from Saturn there?
Hey!
How
you doing?
Don't forget, talk in our original tongue.
I'm always intrigued by his orchestral use of synthesizers. It's always interesting. And he doesn't fall into a certain trap that I've often fallen into. I very often try to duplicate acoustic sounds on the synthesizer, try to make the strings sound like real strings, or try to make the brass sound like real brass. And Stevie lets the synthesizers be what they are, something that's not acoustic.
Now we had between John, Gary, and myself, we'd come up with a assimilated string sound to give us the feeling of an orchestra doing a kind of a.
And he played this classical arrangement through the phone, which had just him humming some of the lyrical dimensions to it. And I said, what is that? He said, it's called Village Ghetto Land. And I asked him to explain the concept that he had in mind. And he began to talk about this whole idea of people who were at the bottom and the sort of dichotomy of people at the top in another world while reality was occurring all around them.
Would you like to go with me down my dead end street? Would you like to come with me to Village Ghetto Land?
The night I finished the last draft, I went to work on the all-night show. At 5:20, he called me in the studio and said, I'm ready for the song. We had not talked in that 3-month period. So I said, I don't have it with me, but it's at home. When I get home, I'll call you in the studio. It was in Los Angeles. I called him. I read him the lyrics. He said, man, that's fantastic. That's exactly what I wanted. That's it. Give it to my secretary. So I gave her the lyrics. Now I'm really excited now. I hang up the phone and I'm saying, yes. The phone rings 15 minutes later and he says, oh, I forgot to tell you. I added another verse to the arrangement. So write the other verse and call me back in 10 minutes. I'm recording it now. And I mean, it took me 3 months to get the drafts right. He wants this verse in 10 minutes. I said, okay. So I got up and I wrote something, thinking that maybe this is in the flavor of what we're talking about. And he called back. He called back in 10 minutes. He said, you got it? I said, yeah, I read it. He says, that's it. And pow, there it was.
There was a great lyric written by Gary Bird, because I knew what I wanted the song to say, to kind of not only make mockery of a condition, of a situation, unfortunately, that still exists in certain parts of the world, but pretty much so throughout the world. So as much as the world has gotten smaller because of mass communication, we still have people starving, living in very, very bad conditions. We still have people who do have enough to give, not giving anything at all. Wonder what happened to them. But anyway, Gary had written a great lyric for the song, Gary Bird, and it really worked for that emotion and feeling that I wanted to get across.
Families buying dog food now.
That was a very distressing line to a lot of people, families eating dog food. But that's a reality. I think it's a reality today in ghettos. Some things haven't changed in 20 years. But again, I think just the dryness and the intimacy of the piece lends itself to what Steve is trying to say.
For what we have, tell me, would you be happy? Village Ghetto Land.
Families buying dog food now, starvation roams the street, babies die before they're born, infected by the grief. Some people say that we should be glad for what we have. Tell me, would you be happy in 1996, 7, 8, 9, 2000?
Ghetto Land.
I like great songs. I like stuff that is different and unique, but also saying something that the public can relate to on whatever level. And Stevie had a little subculture going with all of his stuff, as well as the obvious, which makes a great writer, great producer, great artist.
Everything has that special Stevie Wonder touch to it, that special beauty, special interesting harmonic relationship, or special funky kind of rhythmic component. And he's just one of the great geniuses of our time.
And he excelled in every field. It wasn't just his writing that was creative and mixed, but it was his producing that was unique, and his sound that was unique, his chord structure that people are still trying to figure out today.
We beat this thing. We kicked it down on the ground. Come on, work, thing. So I said. It refused. It's quiet right now, actually. But once it gets the tape, you turn it off, you work it again, you know what's going to happen. So, here's going to the 90s on this particular sound. This is a simulation of the sound that we're gonna use from the ARP synthesizer. So you got to work with what you got to work with. So we'll work with this. Okay, cool. So now that we've done the first part, we're going to do a second part, and after that, a third part. Now, the reason for us doing this, even though this is a polyphonic keyboard, we're doing it monophonically so that we have more control. I have more control of the individuality of each part. If I decided to bend a particular note that I didn't decide to bend the first time, it gives it its own kind of character. So this is the second of 3. And after 3, we're going to do another time, which is none. Okay, here we go. Go back again. I got to rest. I rested. This is the third and final pass. And if I mess up on this one, I'll kick my own. Ask me no question. Tell you no. Okay. I put down the ARP, which we weren't able to get working on the actual presentation today, but that was the next thing that I did. We did 3 different tracks of the ARP. I did the low part first, then the middle part, and then the high part, which is the melody that I used. After doing that, Nathan Watts put down his bass part. Called in the horn players, as we had in this demonstration here. The only difference is on the session we used the late Ray Maldonado, who played trumpet. But we are fortunate to to have the talents of Larry Giddens to perform, and who actually had played on some of the stuff that we had done later on, but Larry Giddens on this particular presentation. So we used Trevor Lawrence, Hank Red, Steve Medea, and on the record, Ray Maldonado, and on this presentation, Larry Giddens.
The way it was mixed, the way the horns were so crisp and had that presence to it. I mean, these guys, Steve Medea, Hank Red.
Trevor, where are you, Trevor?
Trevor, where are you, Trevor? Talking about you.
Come on over here,
Talking about I Wish, the sound of that horn section, and these three guys, man, were killing it, man. Ray Maldonado was going now, but it was
The wall. It's really nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Really?
was. It was. The wall sound.
Incredible. Hot horn section.
The thing with I Wish, which I found out just recently, I didn't get credit for playing drums. Didn't I play drums on I Wish?
Okay, Steve.
That's messed up. You did.
We're sorry.
Stevie is from that old mold of black people that really believe that anybody can do anything they want to do. I don't think he's ever felt limited in his life. He always felt that he could do anything he wanted. See, because he can't see, it gave him an advantage over a lot of people, because color really, really didn't mean shit to him, because he never saw color anyway.
So he had the God-given talent, and he had the structure around him and the support around him so that he could be himself. And he was a unique character. Even as a kid, he was full of pranks. He was doing all kind of stuff. Never felt sorry for himself because he was blind.
You either have that thing or you don't. I don't know what it is, but he's got it. So you either have it or you don't. And I think that's the divinity first. It's a person really surrendering to themselves to become a terminal. That's really what it's all about. Once you decide you are cause and manifestation, you usually get in trouble because you're taking God's job away. We always just say that in the studio: leave the space for God to walk through the room. Stevie does.
When I worked on Songs in the Key of Life, when I decided, even against the many people that felt it was not a smart idea to release a double album, but there were those that felt, yeah, but it's time. They didn't know where it was going to go and what we were going to do. And I can't tell you that I knew exactly what was going to go either and what I was going to do, but I went on faith. I believed that God would give me the songs, the music, the ideas. And so I went out.
I am so glad that you did it. I'm so glad that you released this album, because it is the soundtrack of my life. And I thank you eternally for it.
Not really on faith, in believing that there was a lot that needed to be said, and I knew that there was a lot, I wanted to say.
When he got to Songs in the Key of Life, not only his own evolution as a creative artist, but the evolution of what was going on from, let's say, 69, 70, where Curtis Mayfield begins to do a range of concept albums. And Isaac Hayes is coming with a concept. And then Marvin Gaye drops What's Going On. I think those projects are very pivotal to understanding the point at which Stevie is doing Songs in the Key of Life, that he took the concept idea, the idea of the concept album, and at that point laid perhaps the most massive canvas of creativity that had been done at that point. He also had become a master of how to express those social ideas through music and how to, in effect, communicate past the kind of human biases that especially operate in the territory and framework of the United States, and to actually reach past those and to reach people who otherwise might not want to listen to that kind of message, but through his musical genius would not only listen, but would digest it and understand it.
I said to Steve, I said, you know, to a lot of people here that are Buddhists and they haven't done that, even they practice. And you think we could, you know, take like 20 minutes to do that? He said, oh, absolutely. And he said, as a matter of fact, hey, he spoke to his brother and everybody said, let's go chant with them, you know? And he made everybody go in and chant with us. So we all chanted Nam Myoho Renge Kyo for about maybe 10 minutes. And then we did this book. But of course, only Stevie didn't have the Braille book. But everybody, even the non-Buddhists, sat there while we did the ceremony. It was just fantastic that they were open enough to do something on the spur of the moment like that. That's spiritual. Because a lot of people are not free enough to do that.
For as much as we know and learn is as much as we become liable for what we do or do not do. And when I say we, I mean we. I'm talking about me, you, you know, all of us. We have that responsibility. So I just hope that in the end, as it said, God, you know, he knows our hearts. So I hope that he will know my heart, and I hope that I will have done enough good to be there in that good place.
He's a great terminal, and I think the higher power appreciates the person that's willing to become a huge terminal like that, because the cup will be filled up. You surrender to that.
There are people who have let the problems of today lead them to conclude that for them life is not the way. But every problem has an answer, and if yours you cannot find, you should talk it over to him. He'll give you peace of mind. When you feel your life's too hard, just go have a talk with God.
And Stevie was always digging and growing right with the technology. So he, heaven help, leaving Stevie in the room with all those decisions and all those choices, you know, because he will try every one of them. We all had the same fever. Well, I wonder what it would sound like with this way, and explore it.
Now this sound, as you hear, is the time modulator or something?
Yeah, Marshall time modulator.
And this was one of those devices that were given to experiment with. You know, when people came out with different things, they would always say, well, check this out, wonders. No, they would say, you know, to John or to Gary. And they would say to John or Gary, you know, let's see, you know, how it would work, you know, for what you're doing. And so this is one of those things that we use for black men. Now, come on in with that bass, baby. Now, what do we put on first?
Well, we thought that the Rhodes probably was one of the first things to come on. Because that was our standard modus operandi in those days, was to start off with a Fender Rhodes on most things.
And then go right to a bass. And then drums. How are you gonna wait? I think you have to hold. Well, I don't know how we're gonna do this, Gary. Okay.
Okay.
Go.
They'll probably stick.
And the time modulator thing?
Time modulator?
Yeah, wait, as soon as you do that.
Okay, let's do this again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you hear the drums, the toms, We use the neutron sound, which is like a boom, boom. There's a filter that triggered the toms to opening up the filters and closing the filters up, as you can hear. If you listen very carefully, you'll hear me hit various times microphones, the size of the drums. You know, I wasn't looking at the drums too well.
And that was part of the sound. That's what made it funky.
Love was made for all men. This love was made for all men.
I remember we worked on this song on the 4th of July in 1976.
We did.
You remember that? I'm almost sure we worked on this. We worked on in 75. I think it was 76. We worked on it.
So you didn't give us 4th of July.
Didn't get it off. Didn't get it off.
Boy, that's unusual.
No
Barbecue was
holiday.
at the studio.
Yeah.
My world.
Remember Calvin in the barbecue pit?
Yeah, he can barbecue. He was a professional. So, and then we had, did we?
And we did similar things with the synthesizer there.
Do you remember the horn section, Steve?
Yeah, I did like a da da da. Oh, so
Were you inspired by the 4th of July?
Oh, without question. I had a da-da-da-da. God don't give the gift to everybody. And we've been fortunate enough to be together as collective at one time point in life to share music, man. That's the main thing. And Steve gave us all the opportunity to do that together. You know, because I mean, everybody here was from somewhere else. Without Steve, we would never met.
That's right. Well, this is exciting for me because I had been playing on the road with Buddy Miles and them. Okay. And then the guy asked me, did I want to audition for Steve? And I was living in the garage at that time. I'd lived in the garage for 2 years. And then I took my change and I had like $80 and went down and got my horn out of the pawn shop and went and auditioned. That's when I got with Wonderlove.
And this is coming right in at what point? What year?
That was right in the very beginning of coming into 74. Yeah.
So this is all pre-songs.
Right. I came into the audition of it and then met Nate and then Raymond and then
Yeah. I remember when we went to New York. I was 75. We did Ass with this cat here. Steve said, man, I got this drummer in New York, man. He's bad, he's bad, he's bad, he's bad. I said, okay, Steve. Because Raymond was playing on the other stuff. I said, okay. Got there. It was me, Michael, and Herbie was there, and Greg. This cat laid such a hell of a thing on Ass. Greg Brown, this boy had a pocket. I know. I was like, whoa, whoa. Maybe I stopped playing. I never knew that was inspiration.
I was telling them on the way here when they picked us up from the airport. Playing with you is like you just. There's very few bass players I play with that make me sound good. Like I'm a superstar. You just all the information is in your fingers.
So just being on that one tune, just having that one association makes me feel that, and I'm so happy I was at the right time, at the right place, you know, to just have one little part in that project.
I think the greatest thing that somebody can give you is a time in their life. And, you know, when you're in it, you really, you're so much in it that you really don't understand almost you don't appreciate the significance of that time.
So it was just a very special time, and I think it's hard to describe what it's like to work on something like this. I just recently started to think about what it meant to work on this, and I think what it means is that you actually leave something behind.
One of the 1,000 things I love about Stevie is he knows where the music came from, so that's why he knows where to go, and is sure-footed when he goes there, because that's very important, is to know what happened before. And I always respect the young dudes. Well, Stevie's not as young as 12, but he's still a young dude. He knew what everybody was doing. He was right into it. He was aware, and I love that. Love him for that. But that's just natural with him.
I felt that John and Gary should have been nominated and definitely should have received a Grammy for this album because they opened up so many different avenues. To me, it's almost like the songwriter who can play keyboards or play guitar or whatever and sing his or her melody. You still need that person to take whatever you have and to be able to arrange it to make it get from that place that's inside your head that's on the guitar or keyboard that you're playing to then, if you use other musicians, to be able to create what you want to be captured on paper so that the other musicians can read it and follow it. That's equally as important in the case of an engineer to the artist. If you don't have someone to capture that emotion, to take all that you have that you're expressing and put that on tape, you're lost.
See, Stevie had a wonderful way of taking his life experiences and putting them to music and making them real, raw, and yet very commercial. Now that's very hard to do.
And he was saying that I was mumbling the words to I Wish. I said, no, I'm not mumbling the words, just, we haven't EQ'd it yet. And he said, no, you're ridiculous. He says, and I think I said, I told him that I had lots of different people. I said, George Benson. He said, well, George Benson, you're ridiculous. George Benson, he sounds better than you. He's, you're ridiculous.
It really is a place where you wish those days would come back. You have those moments where you want to go back to that period. And I think he captured it for us in, I just think a very special way, very special, unique way.
I wish when that came out, that was around the time I first started going to parties. And we would stand on the wall. We would stand with our backs on the wall. And everybody was, we were young, so we'd be kind of scared to dance, especially with the lights on. But when I Wish came on, you had to dance.
Looking back on when I was a little nappy-headed boy, then my only worry was for Christmas what would be my toy. Even though we sometimes would not get a thing, we were happy with the joy they would bring. Sneaking out the back, hang out with those who love with a mind. Ooh. Reading at the bank, but I told you not to go outside. Trying your best to bring the water to your eyes, thinking it might stop from whipping your behind. I wish those things could come back once more. I did those things, and I have to go. I wish those things could come back once more. I did those things, and I have to go. 'Cause I love them so. Herbert said he's down there, aren't you playing doctor with that girl? Just don't tell her I give you anything you want in this whole wide world. naughty boy. Teacher sends you to the principal's office down the hall. You listen. You grow up and learn that kind of thing in life. But while you were doing it, it's your body sign up with no space. Good. Come back once more. Why did the face? Yeah. Well, after go up with no space. Good. Come back once more. Why did the face? Yeah. Well, after go.
I thought it was one of the best works he's done that has come out. Because we all know that there's, that we know what's in the can. You know, and I remember sitting on Vine and Sunset with Steve in the car and actually turning the stations and hearing it on every station. All at the same time, which is pretty phenomenal. And just being part of it, because I went out on tour with these guys later, but Steve and I were, you know, really good friends for a long time, but I always felt as though these guys were family. And to have a part and to participate in this record, which I think is a landmark record in music history, is a great experience.
We listened to it 20 years later. It's still just a great record.
Yeah,
and when it
it
came
is.
out, it's so different than anything that was happening at the time. And it just sort of changed the whole music thing into another dimension. It took it to another place. Forget Stevie, for everybody.
I must admit, I was extremely unhappy about $13 million. Of course, until Songs in the Key of Life was released and it came in at #1. Then I thought, what a brilliant negotiator you are, to myself.
If you sit down now and you listen to that album all the way through, it takes you through life.
I would place him right alongside all the greats. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Marvin Gaye.
He is like an example of the best of what a human being can be.
As much as I'm sure all of us feel that Songs in the Key of Life was a very high point in our life, it is not the highest point. I just feel that as much as we have been blessed and honored with the opportunity of creating music and them engineering, it's almost like when they used to ask Duke Ellington what is his most favorite song or his greatest song, he would say, I haven't written it yet. I just think there's so much more that we'll all do. But it is definitely a time and a space that we cannot ever forget.